Good evening and welcome to Alum Rock Christian Church in San Jose, California. We are about to start the season which we call Advent, or the preparation for the coming of the Lord. For the next 25 evenings, we are going to share with you a reflection by Allison Pittman in her book, a wonderful book called Keeping Christmas. And in this book, Allison compares the transformation of Ebenezer Scrooge into a new man to the transformation that we all have as Christians when we believe in Jesus Christ. So we hope that you will tune in every night and watch this with us. If you make a comment on YouTube or Facebook to let us know that you were there, and if you watch all 25 presentations, we would like to send you a free copy of this great book by Allison Pittman called Keeping Christmas. So we hope that you'll share it with your friends and join in every night for this great reflection as we get our hearts ready for the coming of Christmas. As we look at our Advent calendar tonight for the 2nd of December, we're going to open our little drawer, and inside we find a little model of Joseph. The angel stopped by to see Joseph too. "Don't worry," he said, "the Lord will guide you too." Good evening and welcome to Keeping Christmas, our Advent reflection for this year. Tonight we are starting with chapter 2. Covetous Old Sinner. Ebenezer Scrooge, like all of the Charles Dickens' most memorable characters, the pronouncing of his name brings the speaker's lips into a mirthful twist. It is a combination of ancient established weight and authority and whimsy. Ebenezer, meaning stone of help, references a stone placed by the prophet Samuel after God saved the Israelites from being destroyed by the Philistines in 1 Samuel 7, verses 10 and 12. And Scrooge, a name that, according to the film The Man Who Invented Christmas, Dickens came up with after a night of pacing the floor, making noises to himself. The two names come together to create the man who, perhaps unlike any other fictional character ever penned, is simultaneously hated and pitied. We, the readers, root for Scrooge as much as we despise him. He is a villain without any real enemy, an anti-hero with no cause beyond himself. And when he first appears upon the page, he is, like his best and only true friend, Jacob Marley, dead, or at least he may as well be. Sometimes people new to the business called Scrooge, and sometimes Marley. But he answers to both names. It was all the same to him. Scrooge was not, of course, achieved doornail status yet. Outwardly, he is very much alive, as filmmakers tend to portray him as a man full of vitality, storming through the Victorian streets, his walking stick attacking the ice on each step. His voice, when he bursts into his office, is booming and strident, although the novel describes it as shrewd and grating. He is a man of vigor. Death itself, of any natural cause, seems a possibility as distant as spring. And anyone who wishes his demise faces decades of disappointment. Dickens captures this paradox in his introduction to the tight-fisted hand of the grindstone, Scrooge. First, there are the verbs: a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. His actions may not be admirable, but he is active. And if Ebenezer denotes a man of stone, such is Scrooge. Hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire. There is a lifeless chill to the man as well. A frosty rime was on his head and on his eyebrows and on his wiry chin. Now, having a head of white hair and a white beard doesn't automatically carry a feeling of death. Other icons of the Christmas season, you know who you are, might fit the same description, but Scrooge emits no jolly holiday spirit. In fact, quite the opposite. He carried his own low temperature always about with him. He iced his office in the dog days and didn't thaw it 1 degree at Christmas. All of this puts him in the perfect place for transformation. Death to life. Where Dickens points out that Scrooge is a covetous old sinner, the Apostle Paul makes it a point to say that we are all as such. You were dead in your transgressions and sins, he writes in Ephesians 2:1. He goes on to say, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ even when we were dead in our transgressions. Scrooge squeezes and wrenches and grasps, even as his blue-lipped and dead. Beggars avoid him. Children fear him. Even the blind men's dogs would tug their owners into the doorways and up the courts. And the kicker? That's exactly how Scrooge liked it. The evidence of just how powerful his transformation will be. His story begins at the peak of the season of Advent. Only he hasn't been preparing himself. He's being prepared. He's like that perfect Christmas cookie, crisp around the edges, but soft in the middle. He just doesn't know about his own softness. External heat and cold had little influence over Scrooge. No warmth could warm, no wintry weather chill him. In other words, he was impervious to the influence of the world. He is poised between heartbeats. He'll either have another life or he won't, death. Ultimately, the choice will be his, but the opportunity to make that choice comes to Scrooge in the same way that it comes to all of us. We'll see over the course of the story that Scrooge does nothing good. As far as we know, he never has done anything good. Chances are, if not for the supernatural intervention in his path, he never will do anything good. And without Christ, without the Savior, we celebrate this season. The same could be said for all of us. Too often we stride through life and our hard edges exposed. We speak sharp words to drown out our insecurities. We ignore opportunities for good deeds because such might cut into our plans. Look around and see how many people are out and about this season, heads bent, brows furrowed, faces pinched. Think about how many human interactions we decline simply because to engage might mean that there might not be enough time, enough money, enough attention for ourselves. But God is merciful. He can lift us up by those hard edges and speak straight into our soft center. Left to his own devices, Scrooge may have lived the rest of his life self-contained and solitary as an oyster. He would continue to edge his way along the crowded paths of life, warning all human sympathy to keep its distance. But he is not left to his own devices, and they're waiting for him in his very own counting house, the one he had to share with Jacob Marley. But then, remember, Marley's dead. And when Scrooge opens the door, even though it's cold enough to see the steam of his breath within the room, that breath means one thing: his heart is still beating. I hope you'll join us tomorrow for chapter 3. Good night, and God bless.